Hi, my name is Barbara, and I want to talk to you about possibly the most difficult thing that a parent could ever do, and that's to bury a child. You see, what makes it so difficult is that's not the way it's supposed to be. If things were perfect, if we didn't live in a fallen world, a parent would never outlive their child for no reason. But I want you to know that it's possible to live again after the death of a child. Now, there's not some 7 steps, and you follow all of these in the right order and you're better. It's not, you know, 30 days and this is what you do on each day and you're better. But it is possible. I was a young mom, and um, I had my son, and just the was kind of a rocky start for him, and but he was born just a few weeks early, but he was only 5 pounds and 2 ounces. He was jaundice, which is not necessarily uncommon, and but he grew to be a wonderful big kid. He was loving. He talked all the time. He always wanted to have conversations with you. He wanted to sit with you. He wanted to kiss you. He talked so much when he was little. I bought him a tape recorder because I was convinced that if he could tape himself and just hear himself, that it would be better. I bought him a long time ago, so we had cassette tapes. I bought cassette tapes with stories. So I said, okay, well, we'll buy some stories for him. And the little cassette that came with the book, one of his favorites was the Porky Little Puppy. He listened to that every day, all day. So much so that he knew all the words. Couldn't read, but he knew all the words to the story. And he would know when to flip the pages, because when it was time to flip a page, the puppy would bark. So he would recite all the words and he'd bark and then flip the page. And he grew to be a loving young man and played high school football, and he actually was a pretty good player. And then in that sophomore year, he got sick. At first, we didn't really know what was going on. We just knew that he was having cramps and pains in his leg, and he was not a complainer. He was not one to whine about anything. He was really a trooper, but he would complain about his legs, and you know, you're not drinking enough water, you're not eating enough potassium. So we buy more bananas and tell him to drink more water because he was a football player, and he kept complaining. So we took him to the doctor, and the doctor initially, did all the lab work and everything, but on initial visit, she thought the same thing, just get plenty fluid and um, eat some more potassium. She was same along the same line. And that was a Tuesday we went to the doctor. Well, that Friday she called us and she said, "Hey, I need you guys to get in here." So and that's all she said. We didn't know anything more. So we went, and um, came back, and he had a diagnosis of lupus. And lupus had already started to attack his kidneys. That was the first thing that lupus attacked. Well, we get through that. This is in October, but from October till February of the next year, there's not one week passed that we didn't spend at least one day in the hospital. But through the treatments and with the doctor, we were able to get it under control. And we actually thought that he might be able to play football again, and but he was never ever able to be who he was with respect to his game, even after the diagnosis. But as time goes on, he goes into remission, and he has a couple really good years. And then as an adult, he it starts to attack his body again. But through medication, he's able to control it and live what was, a normal life. He held a job, he um, had a family, and had 3 kids. And then we had another traumatic experience in our lives rather. We lived in New Orleans at the time of Hurricane Katrina. So we were all displaced, and he with us. And it was the year after our displacement. So Katrina was in 2005. In 2006, he started having trouble with his heart, and he ended up having a heart attack. He had some blockage, and they put some stents in to open that up. And then from 2006 to 2011, he had a total of 3 heart attacks. He had also had a stroke, but he was still working and, you know, managing on his meds. And then it was December of 2010, and everyone in the house had gotten sick. I have 2 boys. He's my oldest, and then my youngest is 14 years younger. Um, he had gotten strep, and the kids were not feeling well. And then my oldest son, he wasn't feeling well. So we said to Kevin, you probably need to go to the doctor, because just a cold for you is not the same thing as it is a cold, as a cold would be on us. It won't affect us the same way. So he did. Ended up, this is the end of December. They he goes to the hospital, and he spends a night, and they actually said that they want to do surgery. They want to put a defibrillator in. And it's coming up to the New Year's break, well, to the New Year's holiday. So they actually let him come home, and he's scheduled to go back on the 3rd of January to have the procedure done. So he comes home, and we have a wonderful weekend, and we watch a movie together, which we would typically have a movie night on Friday. So he came home, we did movie night, and just, it was a normal day for us, normal weekend for us. And then at Monday morning, he went to the hospital to have the procedure. And again, we're thinking it's going to be pretty routine. Everyone we talked to even called some family friends, a family friend who was a doctor, and it just all seemed pretty routine. So we go to the hospital that morning, and they do the procedure, or rather start the procedure, and it's taken longer than they had anticipated. And then the doctor comes out and tells me that he didn't survive the procedure. The doctor said that he was doing fine. He was still able to talk, and he was talking, and then all of a sudden he couldn't breathe, and then his heart stopped, and they could not resuscitate him, and his heart was just a lot worse than they realized. That he had tests done, about maybe a year before, and it close to a year, and all those tests that they had run back then, it would not have been guidelines to have all those tests run again. But his heart had just gotten a lot worse, and he didn't survive the procedure. So in those moments, all sorts of things go through your mind. It doesn't seem real. This can't be happening. Like, what are you really saying? How do I tell his kids? So many things, even things like it was my fault. I thought, I'd had him as a teen, and this was my punishment. So all these things go through your head, or went through my head, and I just didn't know how I would go on. But there is life after the death of a child. And these things that I'm going to share, 4 things with you. And again, the process is going to be different for everybody, not in any particular order. Not that these are the only things that one needs to do, but these things helped me and continue to help me live after the death of a child. One thing is we celebrate each birthday. So every year we celebrate birthday. We celebrate his birthday. We go and buy the cake that he loves, and we sit and we tell stories about birthdays, about who he was to us, and we celebrate. He lived, and we're not going to forget that. So we celebrate his birthday and who he was. One of the other things we do is we find ways to remember the laughs. What did he do that made us laugh? We remember those things. We think about the funny things he did. We talk about I talk about things he did as a kid. The kids talk about things he did as a dad, and we laugh about those things as a way to remember him. One of the other things we do is we talk about ways that he made us a better person. We think about who he was as a person, and the way he cared for us, and the way he loved us, and the way he made us better because of who he was. And we talk about him often. When it first happens, it feels like your world has stopped, and then it feels like the world is just falling apart. And then it feels extremely difficult when you're trying to make yourself get up every day and the world is just moving. People are living and they're doing everything that they would normally do. And it feels really hard. And then people don't know what to say or what to do. So they try not to mention him around you because they think it's too difficult if they say anything about it. They try to be careful about even the words and the things that they say around you. Help them out. Let them know that it's okay to talk about it. Yeah, we're grieving, and yes, it's sad, and it doesn't matter how much time passes. We live a new normal, but that doesn't replace who he is. There's no replacement for that. So we talk about him, and we talk about him often. I remember favorite foods, and when we cook them, we talk about it, and um, remember favorite cereals, because if you don't remember and talk about him often, you'll find that you forget things. And that's one of the hardest things, is to not to be able to remember something about him. So there is life after you bury a child. Um, yes, it's different, but you can still live because he still lives. He is a part of you, and he still lives within us, and we make sure that we celebrate him. So we celebrate his birthdays. We laugh and talk about the things that he did that made us laugh. We recognize how we're better because he was a part of our lives, because he is a part of our lives, and we talk about him often. So I encourage you to download this form, and write your celebrations out. Like maybe even each year, what did you do to celebrate? List some things that he did that made you laugh. Write them down. Write how he made you a better person, and talk about him often.